Haere mai ki Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Another big show for you this week as the All Blacks head into their test match against Japan. We'll cross over to them soon with new lock Sam Darrry, who's been a little bit of a sensation really, hasn't he, this season. He's adapted to test rugby so well. An interesting backstory. He's been around this team for a long time because his mum's a nutritionist. At 2 metres 3 tall, she's fed him pretty well. She's done very, very well. So we'll talk a little bit to Sam Darrry. Also, we'll talk a little bit about what it looks like against Japan. What does this Japan team do well? This All Blacks team with Paddy TUIPULOTU leading it and a couple of debutants likely off the bench and Ruben Love and Peter Lakai. Plenty to talk about there. Of course, we've got the NPC final as well. Wellington versus Bok to look forward to. And a big signing for the Blues women. Possibly the greatest female player of all time, Portia WOODMAN-WICKLIFFE, signed up with them. Their wingers are going to be outstanding next year with Caitlin Valcolo as well. So plenty to talk about in this episode. Joining us, as always, Blues man. Be very happy to have Portia joining his crew over there.
Perhaps
Goodness
you know
me.
She's definitely going to get us on the front foot.
Oh, yeah, and them on their asses as she runs over the top of them. And Bryn Hall. Bryn's last ep in New Zealand before he flies over to Japan. Get to catch the test match this weekend, Brynner?
I am actually. Thankfully enough, Davey actually was able to help me out with a few tickets. So yep, I'll be on the Bird on Wednesday and then I will be going to the game on Saturday. So I went there last time the All Blacks came and it's a great sight. And just knowing the Japanese boys have been over there for the last 2 years, they'll be relishing the opportunity to play the All Blacks. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
We'll get into that Japanese team very, very soon, but let's have a little look at the All Blacks. Paddy TUIPULOTU, your old mate Paddy TUIPULOTU, that's great for him to get a chance to lead this team.
Yeah, massive, and I think it's just a tip of the cap of what he's done over a number of years, obviously at Super Rugby level, and I think it's an opportunity to sort of test him out and grow him and make sure that they have, I suppose, reliable replacements. We're in a contact sport and you can't just rely on one or two. And there is a unique art to actually doing the job. You know, it is a leadership group, it is a combined effort, I get all that, but there is a focus, there is a pressure that comes with it and I suppose getting that opportunity to grow that so that if the opportunity is presented through injury or whatever other mechanism, he is ready to go and whether it's a big game or a development game, whatever it is, he's got that skill set and I suppose it's not his first ever approach if it was to fall at a World Cup or any other opportunity that has that sort of greater significance.
One of the interesting things about where this team is going, Bryn, Damien McKenzie at 10, Stephen Pettifeta at 15. Is this a suggestion that Beauden Barrett's going to be at 10, do you think, through those key test matches in the middle of the tour?
Oh, not necessarily. I think the good thing with Damien, and we've touched on a lot, not just in the first 5 position, but even in the midfield or positions where you kind of need runs on the board, it just continues that theme for Damo, right? So I think Beauden played really well in their last test match that he was given the opportunity. I think it just, through competition, I guess with having Beauden there, it just has to be able to put Damien on edge to be able to go out and perform well. So there are going to be guys that have opportunities, but I think it's still going to be a very strong All Black team. And I think for him, it's just been able to put runs on the board and hopefully the coaches can see a good performance from him. And obviously with Stephen Pettifeta, he had a great debut and playing at 15 in that first test match against England. So again, another guy with another opportunity to be able to prove himself, to be able to see if he wants to play in the Northern Hemisphere. But yeah, I think for Damien, it's just a continuation of trying to get him runs on the board internationally as much as you can.
History would suggest that the bulk of the players or the big name players that aren't playing will start that England test. However, a massive performance of dominance does add into the discussion of could he slip to fullback, what's the bench makeup and so forth. So I don't think it's set in stone that he's not starting, but I do think, one, they're looking for a big performance, but also we all know Bodie had a really good, strong game. It'd be hard to see him removed based on anything other than an amazing performance. But I'd still think that there is an opportunity for the way Damien performed at fullback for him to start at fullback and potentially will move back to wing.
From your experience on an All Blacks tour, are these selections premeditated from week to week or is there a lot of adaptation going on the run?
I think they'll have a general idea. Players certainly don't. They like to have that edge of, you know, you've got to perform at training to get your spot back. You know, that's captains included and so forth. So from a player's point of view, no, they won't have an idea. But I think from a coaching group, they'll have a general idea, okay, if the tour plays out this way, this is where we're currently thinking, but they're in pencil. So performances, behaviour, on and off field, all those sorts of things can adjust that very quickly.
Britain, this weekend, we're finally going to get to see Anton Leonard-Brown and Billy Proctor in the midfield together. The amount of emails that we've received over the last few months with people advocating for those two guys possibly as a midfield combination has been a lot. Proctor was so good during Super Rugby. Anton Leonard-Brown's been one of the form players so far through the Test season when he's been on the field. What do you think about the way these two might gel?
Oh, I think it's going to be an awesome combination. Look, I know they haven't played a lot of rugby, but I think if you look at the last time they played together, correct me if I'm wrong, it was against Fiji, whereas Anton and Billy Proctor, they started in that game in Fiji. So I think Billy, we were oohing and ahhing in terms of, was he going to get an opportunity? Because with his performance has been playing so well against Fiji, but Rico got given an opportunity and I guess was challenged in terms of being able to play really well with seeing how good Billy Proctor was going along with Anton Leonard-Brown, and he's been able to do that. So I think for Billy, it's more so the same, being able to have a really good performance against the Japanese like he did against Fiji, do all the things that you need to probably try and I think that will be coming in the future test matches with high line speed and physicality with on the attacking side of the ball. So his distribution skills, his ability to be able to read defensively, all the things that he did really well at Super Rugby and with Fiji, to copy and paste and do the exact same thing. Because then what that does, it just backs up his consistency. Even though it is his second test match, if he can do that, and the coaches will say, hey, this guy's ready, we've given him another opportunity. He would have had disappointment with, I guess, the UN and Arin if he could get another opportunity. So those are things that you want to see from a player as well. If you people think that you might get picked, but you keep chipping away at training, doing all the right things, get given another opportunity, play really well in that, and then it adds pressure to the other positions like we touched on with Rico and even Anton Leonard-Brown, who I think has probably been one of the best backs in the All Blacks this year.
All players have strengths. One of Billy's massive strengths is whether he gets the ball or doesn't get the ball, he makes defenders have to make a decision. Whether he's got the ball, he's going to draw you in and then free up his outside. If he doesn't get the ball, he is running such a line that looks like he is going to be able to receive a pass that you have to bite in, which frees up your outside. So, whenever you're playing outside Billy Proctor and you're a wing, you're going to score tries. There's no doubt about that. But also, I think it's going to free Anton up a little bit to get his running game going and sort of get in between defenders and show that power game that we know sort of Geordie's shown in that 12 jersey, but really make a statement to say, hey, I can play international 12 and I can do the exact same job of getting and create that competition and not such a dead cert. Geordie's there every week.
Now, we will get through to a bunch of your questions very soon and someone will get the Players Sports Ball as they do every single week and we'll focus on that. But first, we'll go to Sam Darry, All Blacks lock, the son of the nutritionist, so he's had a few advantages on getting his body in good shape along the way. We caught up with him in Tokyo a little bit earlier. Sam, thank you very much for joining us. Hot over there at the moment?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. It has been. It's been awesome. We talked about heading north for tour, and I kind of thought we were going to the cold winter months over in Europe, but no, it was 29 degrees at training on Saturday, so it was definitely a bit of a wake-up call.
The boys got the singlets out?
Yeah, exactly. Trying to get a bit of a tan before, as I say, we go into about 4 or 5 weeks of winter over in Europe.
You see the relationship of Ivan Cleary and Nathan Cleary. You're in a similar spot in the All Blacks. Your mum, Kat, is obviously the nutritionist. How has that transition between, I suppose, son, mother, and into the professional environment been?
Yeah, she's not quite my coach, so I don't know if it's quite as similar a relationship as the Clearys, but no, it is very, I guess, unique having her over here and being in the environment. I think obviously being away from home for 5 weeks away on tour, I imagine by the end of it might get a bit difficult, but I think having her around will help, and it's always nice to have a kind of piece of home with you, I guess, when you go away.
In all seriousness, though, having her in this environment for so long must have set you up, I suppose, a step ahead of most kids growing up in terms of what it will take to get to that black jersey. She's
been fortunate enough to be part of the team for, I think it's something like 14 or 15 years now. So growing up, I guess I got a bit of a look behind the curtain of what goes on in the environment and what it takes to get there. And, obviously having her as a bit of a sounding board for any of my nutrition help, and then also just help around how I'm preparing for games, little bits that she's picked up after being in this environment for so long. So I definitely think it's helped me in the long run.
How have you found the transition from being in domestic and Super Rugby to the jump of being in the All Blacks, and I guess what it takes to play at that level and to train at that level as well?
I guess it has been seamless in a way, but there's definitely aspects of the game that are a lot more intense. The contacts are bigger. I think the thing that I've probably learnt most is around the I guess importance and pressure of big moments. I think especially coming off the bench in close test matches, one moment could be the difference between winning a test match and losing a test match. So I think, at NPC or super level, some things you might get away with and may not have as big of an impact on the game, whereas at test level, each little moment has massive ramifications.
Where do you find those small margins are the most? What area of the game have you noticed them?
I think for me personally around errors a wee bit, if you are building some phases nicely and then, you might throw a bad pass or drop a ball or whatever, and all of a sudden, the momentum can switch so quickly because the other team can, pick it up 2 passes and burn you down the other end. So I think it's something that I've had to kind of learn, I guess, a wee bit of trial by fire, but hopefully something that I've can improve going forward.
What kind of things is Razor been trying to implement, and I guess for your forwards or your backs to be able to try and rectify those things to go into this northern part of the tour?
First and foremost is just skill set, execution of skill set. So being decisive with your action, whether it's a carry, whether it's a short pass, whether it's a pass out the back, having real clear comms as to what we're looking for there. And then I guess also just trusting our game. And as I said, playing with confidence. So we get down there and we are decisive. We know what we're doing. And when we enter the 22, we come away with points.
With the Japanese, obviously not everyone has probably watched all their games throughout the year. So what can we see as potential opportunities for the All Blacks, but also what are potential threats?
They had a bit of a chance on the plane over to do a bit of preview. So, they've got a lot of threats. They're a great quality side. But I think we've largely been trying to focus on ourselves, more than anything. And as I touched on before, working on a few areas of our game that we think we can kind of work on going forward. So as Bryn touched on, our execution, and then from a forward point of view, we want to really impose ourselves at the breakdown and with our mauls up the field and in the 22.
So, Sam, when you're on the plane, you're not looking at a blockbuster, you got the laptop out. You're geeking it up, you're studying, you're the perfect student.
I think it was a 10.5-hour flight, so I had a bit of time for both, but, it just kind of makes it a bit easier when you get there to already have a bit of work done. So a few of us, especially the locks, kind of like to have a look at the lineouts and stuff and get ahead of the game, I guess.
It was a little bit long time ago, but you actually obviously were down in the Christchurch area, my old mate, with the old Crusaders and coming through that way.
He saw the light.
He's obviously gone on to greener pastures and is where he is right now. But how have you found reconnecting with Razor and Jason Ryan and a few of those Crusader coaches that you probably would have had a little bit to do when you were back down in Christchurch? Has it been nice reconnecting and I guess, being back with them and seeing what it's been like to be coached by them again?
I was fortunate enough to get a training contract when I was younger down there for over summer, and I guess that was my first real taste of professional footy, and that was under both Razor and Jason Scott Hansen. So I guess I learned a lot from them through that short stint, and then coming back in here, you kind of see a lot of the things that they tried to get you to install as a habit in your game at that early age.
2026, you coming back, mate? Sorry.
Okay, just pump the brakes. Now,
I'm happy up in Auckland, mate.
Bryn and I like to go back and forth with a bit of banter between Crusaders and Blues, but in all seriousness, the growth of your game under Vern Cotter, and I suppose the simplicity of that game plan and how that's helped you step up to international rugby?
Vern coming in was great for the Blues and great for myself. I guess coming through the system in New Zealand, a lot of people play quite similarly. Everyone's got quite a some form of shape, whether it's 1-3-3-1 or 2-4-2 or whatever. Whereas under Vern, he kind of flipped it a wee bit, which was quite different. And at first, it took a wee bit to get used to, but really just empowered us to kind of play what we see, tighten things up, and as you say, just play quite a simple game. And he's quite similar to Jace, where he's not afraid to tell it how it is, and call you up if you're not giving him what he wants, and it's never personal. It always comes from a place of care, and he's wanting to get the best for the team. So he's also been massive for my growth, I guess, and growing my physicality within the game.
And I'm imagining, looking up at Europe when you're going to play England and France and Ireland, it gives you a really solid understanding of how they play their footy, because it is relatively similar, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Vern would show a lot of clips of, obviously he's come from quite a French background at Clermont, and he would show us a few clips of how they play, and kind of wanting to get us to kind of emulate that a wee bit. So you did right, if you start to look forward a wee bit to the games we've got coming up, it can definitely kind of, I guess, help us prepare, knowing the style that they like to play.
Sam Darrry, eh? He's a good rooster.
He's very good.
Yeah.
Tell you what, he's even better that he went on a jog to make sure that he had the right headphones and all. He's a good man.
That's
He's
true.
a good man.
The Conrad Hotel is a rather large hotel too. That's the one that Floyd Mayweather stayed at during the 2019 World Cup. And we were there, and we turned up to All Blacks press conferences, and Floyd was there with everyone, like his entire team and these incredible cars and everything that was going on. It's a hotel.
Yeah.
It's a hotel to get around. Brenna, of course, those are the kind of hotels that you stay at in Japan, aren't they?
I can't say. I've been lucky enough to only spend maybe two times staying there. So it's a hell of a setup there. So the All Black boys and even Floyd Mayweather were very lucky that they were able to do that. So no, mate, we're on a little bit of a different budget here. A little bit different with the old yen over here, mate. So not as much as the Conrad.
From what you've seen in person, what you've seen of how they've gone this year internationally, where are the threats?
Yep.
Who are the people that New Zealanders should look out for in this Japanese team?
Look, you've got Warner Dearns there, who I think has been in and around that environment for a long period of time. A big man, very similar to Brodie Retallick build, so you'd have to think that he's a guy when it comes to set-piece wise. The Japanese boys will be wanting to target him and go into him. You've got Malo Tuitama, who I played with at the Blue Revs, who is single-handedly one of the best wingers in Japan. He scores 2 tries a game, is great both attacking-wise, defensively, can kick off both feet. So he's one guy that was brought up in the Wellington system, played for Wellington, and kind of went around a little bit in the New Zealand Super Rugby franchises, but he's plied his trade over in Japan and is one to watch. I also think Fakatava, the loose forward, if he does play, he's one guy that, if you're talking around physicality, flair, and being able to do things with the ball on hand, he's one guy to look out for as well. So there's plenty of guys there that I think can really ask questions of the All Blacks defence, but I think the biggest thing that I probably saw in the PNC and even commentating their games in the last couple of years is just their skill set under pressure. I think for long periods of time in the back end of games, or when it gets a little bit tight, a lot of unforced areas in decision making under pressure is one thing that they do lack, and it's a big thing up here in Japan Top League. It's the efficiency and being able to play at that high intensity for long periods of time, and probably knowing Dan Bowden as well, talking to him a bit and spending a bit of time with him. That's one thing that they've really been able to try to get better at, and being able to not have that high unforced error rate. So a lot to play for the Japanese team. It'll be a great occasion. It'll be sold out. It'll be nice and hot, and they're very, very proud in country. So it's not going to be easy for the All Blacks, but those would be a few names that I'll be watching out for this weekend in Tokyo.
Chipper, those are some themes we've seen against Fiji when they lost the final of the Pacific Nations Cup, against England earlier on, against the good teams, when push comes to shove.
And I think it all starts, I mean, one thing that I've got to consider is what the All Blacks are going to bring. And because we had Jace Ryan a few weeks ago, it's that collision area. So carry clean. They lost that against Fiji. Now, if you don't win your carry clean, or you don't win that collision, or at least match that collision area, then you're always on the back foot defensively, but let alone you can't get your attack going. So, I think Fiji tackled at around 79%, but they only scored 2 tries. To me, what that's saying is, with every opportunity they were given, it was either a skill set issue or they just got beaten up. Now, can they change that in such a short space of time? I'm not if they go with a similar personnel, I'm not sure they're going to find an All Black team that plays anything, I suppose, a little bit different. I think they are. I think this All Black team is going to go direct because they're trying to prepare for what's coming. And if we get this right and we get our mojo right, then it sets us up for the rest of the tour, but it also sets us up against this Japanese side to probably win convincingly. If you look at previous times when we've made this stop in Japan, the mindset wouldn't have been, but we've rushed to score points. And what I mean by that is we didn't go through them, we've rushed to get it to width and just hope a little bit of individual brilliance is going to score 10 tries and we're going to win by plenty of points. But the Japanese actually, that played into their hands because it wasn't the collision aspect, it became about, a fitness element, forcing errors because the All Blacks are over trying and so forth, and it's been quite close when it hasn't been expected. If the All Blacks go with that mindset, then it's going to play into their hands. But I don't see how they stop that direct nature with the way they currently play and their current defensive systems.
And I think also defensively, it's probably been one thing that David Kidwell has hopefully been working on behind the scenes, because I think with Japanese rugby, one-on-one tackles is probably on the lower scale of percentage when it comes to individual tackle rate, especially with Japanese players. So obviously the brute physicality of those players that we've touched on, hopefully they do have a big forward pack, but those one-on-one tackles are so important, especially at international event, and time again against teams where the game's been in the balance, or it's nothing too animated or anything like that. It's just kind of a one-on-one tackle that they have missed, and then it's been able to, I guess, change the result of the game. So the physicality and the tackle efficiency for the Japanese this week is going to be really important. It's going to have to be in that kind of 85-90% percentage, which traditionally it probably isn't at that level at Japan rugby. So hopefully David Kidwell has been working on that, because if they're in that low percentage in the 70s, it's going to be too hard of that Japanese to get the result on the weekend.
So we need to go through the front door.
Knock on it, press the doorbell.
No knock on it, just barge it down.
Just smash it over.
Just go straight through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've got plenty of big games coming up this weekend, because we've also got the NPC final. Wellington versus Bay of Plenty. Plenty to talk about there. We'll have your questions coming up very soon. But let's start just with a little bit of Wellington versus Bay of Plenty. Chip, Bop are good. Are they good enough to go to Wellington and take this?
Yes, and the reason why I say that without hesitation, I commentated the game in Wellington where Wellington won on Golden Point. Bop should have won that. They dominated that game. Wellington, it's miraculous. A bit of Riley Higgins magic really got them out of it. So yes, but similar to other teams is, I suppose, how accurate they can be with the opportunities they've created. So in terms of stats, they're first in tries going into semi-finals weekend, but they're first in 22 entries. So their conversion rate, although they're first in both those metrics, their conversion rate, they do leave a lot out there.
This is Bay of Plenty.
Bay of Plenty. They leave a lot out there in terms of their entries into the 22. They don't always come away with the full reward, and that's shown throughout their season. And when they've missed those opportunities, and a bulk of opportunities, like 3 or 4 tries left out there, and if I use that Wellington game as an example, in the first half they left 3, 4, 5 tries out there, and I think on the other side is Wellington have the best conversion rate. They're not that high in 22-minute entries, but they're third in tries. So they actually don't need, if they get in there, they normally come away with 5 points, not 3. They don't look for 3. They are very clinical in their execution when they get in that 22. So can the bot prevent Wellington from getting in there defensively? I think they've shown they're one of the best at getting turnover ball, or at least slowing ball down and getting that line speed pressure to force errors. So do they have the complete game to win? Yes, they do. But they have shown throughout the season lapses of ability to capitalise on the pressure they've created. In a final, there's going to be very few opportunities. They're not going to get as many opportunities as they saw in round robin. So they need to be able to take them. If they don't take them, I think Wellington win this game, because they will. Any opportunity they get, they'll take it. It's they just, I don't know what it is about their nature when they get in the 22. They're very clear on their DNA. They've got a lot of activity off the ball, and they just wear sides down. Yeah,
look, I think it's a great final. Look, I'm very similar to Jibbo. I picked Canterbury in terms of the experience of they came back in, I guess, the dominant fashion that they beat Tasman. But if you're looking at Bay of Plenty, I thought, 13-8 at half time. Canterbury didn't probably have a lot of territory within that first 25 minutes, a few kicks from Caleb Trask, and Canterbury did a lot of defending in that first half, but to be able to come back post that 13-8 deficit at halftime, to score 25 unanswered points post that halftime, it was pretty incredible. You talk around brutality, they were able to do that for long periods of time, and I think the likes of Willis Holoholo and Monenarawa, both on both sides of the ball, they were outstanding. You obviously got Louis Roy Carter and Cole Forbes who were out there as well, but I think collectively as a back unit, they were outstanding. And I think the difference that it could be, we touched on with Waikato last week with Xavier Rowe and Aaron Cruden. Look, I think Triple T is having his best year at NPC. You're talking around the consistency of his game. I thought his box kicks on the weekend were really good in terms of being able to build momentum, and along with what Gyp said when it comes to Caleb Trask, he was really good in and around trying to find space along the game management side of putting teams under pressure through his kicking game. So I think they've got all the balance there. Some really key guys in key positions playing really well. But geez, if you're Wellington, like you said, Du Plessis-Crieff in that last 20 minutes, or maybe it was like a 10-minute span, had like 3 turnovers and it had a big one-on-one tackle for a turnover, which I guess almost galvanised that Wellington group to get that result. And I actually thought Lawaki and Iramia, for 2 young men in that Wellington forward pack, were really good, along with Brad Shields and Caleb Delaney, who were good as well. So I think it's going to be a great final, but I think the winning of the game could be with Trask and Triple T. I think, Preston has had a really good year. I think he's topped the try count for halfbacks with 8 tries and has had a really good performance in semi-final, along with Harkin as well. So very 2 inexperienced 9 on 10s, played really well against Rowe and Cruden on the weekend. But I think Triple T and Caleb Trask, with their experience, could be the difference come Wellington.
And I think it's worth noting, the reason why Brendan and I are like, man, that was such a clinical second half from Bay of Plenty is we haven't seen that since round 2 in their Storm week against Counties. Every game's been tight because of the opportunities that have been presented. They haven't always taken them. They're creating so much, but just haven't taken them. And that was, to me, I don't know, if that doesn't give them confidence and belief that they can do that in a final on the biggest stage, then you know it will. However, there was a moment in the Wellington game, and I believe this is Wellington's point of difference. Like we say, in terms of experience and game management, Tahirirangi and Trask have probably got the edge on Preston and Harkin. That's just fact. However, there was a moment where I can't remember who the player was. There was a stacked tackle. By stacked as you get under, and it normally ends in an opposition scrum, so it's a turnover. And then one of the Wellington players came and jumped on top of the maul and was like sort of laughing, joking and celebrating in a weird way. You wouldn't have seen it, but Brad Shields came up from behind him and just said no, because it could have reversed the whole penalty. And that experience and that ability and that focus, the game was won. Do you know what I mean? But the focus and the edge that Du Plessis and Brad Shields had, that's their point of difference. If they can play their game around those two, and we speak time and time again about the breakdown, with both sides of the ball, those guys dominate. So it won't really matter who's at 9 and 10 if you're not getting the platform. So that battle between a very young loose forward trio who is, let's be honest, punched well above their weight. They've been extremely impressive, with Broughton, Johnston, and Norris, who, is just a tireless worker and will create things out of nothing. But there is something, I don't know, about the Shields, Crieff makeup and the way that they have, real strong leadership and clear values on how they want to play the game and their discipline to play it for the full 80. Is Wellington's edge, and they need to lean into that, as do Bay of Plenty into Tahirirangi and Trask.
Bryn, we've seen a few real standout players in the last few weeks. Riley Higgins, I think you mentioned before, has been outstanding in all areas of the game, on both sides of the ball. The other person who's been catching the eye last couple of weeks, he's not going to be in the final, but Ollie Mathis. This kid is a freak. He's a loose forward playing on the wing, and he looks like he's played there his entire life.
Mate, I'm glad you brought that up. I put in highlights in my notes. Ollie Mathis, is he a 7 or is he a winger? Like, genuinely. Because, we've talked around a lot with the Springboks, and this has gone off a little bit, talking about guys being in different positions with Kwagga Smith and that, but I think he's just taken it to another level. If you watched him play for the first time and you didn't know he was a flanker, you'd think he's a winger. Like that individual brilliance try that he scored from 50 metres out for a chip and chase, put on his right foot, and then the ability to be able to pick it up under pressure, I was like, there's no way this guy can be a 7. like with his skill set. So look, I think, geez, if you're talking about one for the future and a hybrid role, we have had a few questions in the past around having hybrid players. Ollie Mathis right there can show you what a hybrid and what the future might look like, because he was outstanding. He's absolutely I love watching him play.
He's New Zealand's answer to Kwagga Smith.
But with a bit more gas, probably.
Yeah, but Kwagga's got a bit more size. So, but you know what I mean. Kwagga could go to the wing. You know, you might even, silly enough, in terms of his development, you might even see him in the sevens. You know, like I think he's clearly shown that. But, you know, even when he played at 7, I think it was against Northland, he showed this raw pace and this raw ability to break the line and, you know, sort of get between defenders. I suppose where most coaches will be looking at in terms of his role as 7 is in and around that collision area and how they grow his body mass. Now, does he lose that speed and ability to play on the wing as he grows? Because he's going to have to fill into his body to play in
He's not
6,
a small
7.
bloke, like he's still a solid bloke.
He is, but you think Super Rugby 7, International 7, he's going to grow. He's young as well, so he's physically going to develop. If he can do that development and keep that pace, man, the world's his oyster. Like, just even that nudge ahead from the chip and chase, just the left foot toe ahead. You know, like, I don't know, most forwards would be looking just to dive on that ball to secure it. You know, he puts the foot to it and scores a ridiculous try. It was, and I was trying to explain to people that was watching it with me, I was like, mate, he's a 7. But no, he's not. I'm like, I'm telling you, he was captain of the schoolboys at 7.
Yeah.
But it is hard to believe the way he's playing.
What's he, 20 years old? He's only a year and a half out of school.
And very rarely do you see a winger. I've always seen Adi Severo on the wing or Kwaha, but geez, he looks like a winger. So yeah, pretty impressive. So definitely can't wait to see what his story is going to be in 12 to 24 months.
You can see a 6-2 split coming in his teams anytime soon.
That is exactly what I said. Any team that he's on, man, he's great in terms of that hybrid role for a 6-2 or 7-1.
I actually think, that was an element of the 4-4 split because Ross Filippo and his team went for 4-4, so 4 forwards, 4 backs, but it's because they had a back that could come into the forwards. So he has actually already allowed for that manipulation in terms of that team structure in a different sense.
It's pretty special.
Especially at that age, you're nervous enough to come in just to perform in your position, bread and butter. But then to get that opportunity and deliver the way he's done, I suppose also shows 95% of professional sport is your top 2 inches. Like everyone's going to physically develop. There is no rocket science to that. There's sports science. Every team's got it. You're going to get those physical developments, but it's really that mental development and your ability to adjust. And man, he's executed it on the big stage and on TV. That's runs on the board. His stocks have risen massively.
Well, do you think that Jip is excited now? We've got 3 scrum questions coming up. He's going to be incredibly excited in just a moment. So, thank you very much for all sending through your emails. Aotearoa rugbypod@sky.co.nz or jump into the YouTube comments section. We'll do our best. And, of course, one Players Sports rugby ball heads your way at the end of every show. Let's start off with this first question relating to the Lions versus Waikato, where we didn't see Ollie Mathis on the scrum, we saw him on the wing. It says, can the panel explain the scrum calls from the Lions v Waikato game? The Lions were repeatedly penalised on their feed, yet it was generally the Waikato props folding at the torso. To an amateur like me, that looks like he's not taking the hit and or the weight of the Lions scrum. That's from Jared Simmons.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing, and this is where the frustration is with scrums, it's referee interpretation. So, and this is why, as Type 5, you always get together for a game and the first 15 minutes will probably dictate who the ref watch, in terms of, So he potentially was watching Wellington, and Wellington's, because flinging your feet out the back and just landing like a pancake isn't a good picture either, as well as hinging. So, for them, it may be, they can't absorb the hit, so they're losing their feet. But the picture is, okay, well, he's hinging. I can see where the confusion is, but it actually comes back to, okay, what has he seen early to then fixate on Wellington and potentially leads to them missing it. But it's a judgment call, and because they're focused on one team, you can't focus on both, unfortunately. You do have your ARs and so forth, but because of that early momentum, you do slowly pick up calls that are 50-50, because they are 50-50, because they're both doing wrong. Both are not right. It's just who's making the first indiscretion. Or you go back to a reset, which we used to see, which irritated a lot of people. So refs are now actually put into a corner to make a decision because they don't want to reset. And so it does become, okay, my interpretation is this. Whereas you could get another ref out there who hasn't seen the first 20 minutes and he may see it differently. I know it's a little bit of a cop-out, but there's indiscretions both sides. But because of this big fixation of not doing a reset, which we're normally going, okay, well, both sides have gone down, not going to make a call, we're not going to muck around, let's reset it. They're now saying we're not going to go to that, we're just going to make a call.
Yeah, that's tough.
It is tough, but we can't have it both ways. So we either, you know, as players, you fixate on what you can control and you can control the first few scrums. If you show great pitches and you do it all the right way in the first few scrums, and say both sides do, well, you're going to see a fair contest. You're not probably going to see too many resets. We're not going to have this conversation. But if there is one side that does well in the first few and there's that other side that doesn't, well, they're under the pump to adjust. But that, as we've always talked about, that's where leadership comes in. So ref management going, hey, look, I know we've been terrible the first two. I've had a chat. We're going to bring our feet up. You know, so you bring them on the journey rather than avoid the fact that they're looking elsewhere.
Telling the story.
Yeah, well.
They're selling the narrative. Brenna, as a halfback, overseeing this cacophony, whatever's going on here, I'm not sure if that's the right word, did you get a feel for right and wrong? Or were you too busy looking at what the other halfback was going to do, or what was going on?
He got a feel for his team. That was all he focused on.
I was about to say, geez, if you were going to ask me anything around technical around the scrum, I had absolutely nothing for you. But no, as a halfback, you really just try and get into the ref's ear or something. So I knew absolutely nothing about it. I just said, like, if I saw something and they were maybe under, if they had like a passive scrum or they were wigging a few penalties, I'll just try and say, oh, look at that, mate. That's the third time they're doing it. Like, you've got to be able to reward us more or something like that. Just try and do a bit of gamesmanship. But whether they actually talk to me or not or listen to me, probably didn't go my way at all, to be honest.
Bryn's been very modest. So during the game, when we played at Harbour, he would always come up to me and he goes, what are the frustrations up front if we're getting pinged? Because every front rower comes up going, ugh, it's not me, this is ridiculous. But he would come and he goes, what can I communicate to help? Yeah. So rather than him trying to guess or just be annoying, he would actually come to get what the specifics are of our frustrations up front, so that if he can see it and point it out to the ref, he will. So he's actually and I really irritated me when he was playing for the Crusaders against me, but he was very, very good at it. And I think there's a lot of refs out there that would say it wasn't just white noise, it was specific noise. Yeah.
So this is why the refs want you to come on board, because they think you're a scrum expert as well.
Well, if this year's anything to go by, I'm 0-2. So Chris Pollock, I think I might not be coming back into that because I'm 0-2. So for all the good stuff that Jip just said, I probably cost my team 2 games with my gamesmanship. So, but yeah, I think that's what I like about just being a halfback, because you're just so close to it, giving pitches and helping out our boys where you can. You actually almost get a bit of excitement and enjoyment when actually you're saying something and it ends up coming to fruition. So yeah, but no good for 2024 though, lads.
Mate, they'll be sewing a towel into the front of your kit no time soon. Just spinning it around.
They maybe need to give you a few wins. They maybe need to give you a few wins so you can actually think reffing's an option.
Yeah, well, Polly, he could have helped me. I might be not sitting on 99 right now. I might be paying 100. So, yeah, but that's it. We'll leave it to that. We'll leave it to next time.
Okay, so the next question we've got on the scrums is another interesting one. We sat on this one for a while from Michael Birch. It says, my question is about scrum penalties. After watching the Boks pummel the Pumas in the scrums and win penalty after penalty, it made me question, is this the right approach? The Pumas were being repeatedly penalised for being worse at scrums. If a team kept on losing lineouts, they wouldn't be penalised for it. Why is it that you can be bad at something and be penalised for it in a scrum, but on the other hand, you just kind of lose a line-out? So
this is a great question and great timing, because Paul Williams throughout the NPC, and I complimented the other day, I ran into him, it was actually the quarter-final, Canterbury versus Tasman. Canterbury had clear dominance, But Tasman did nothing wrong. They stayed square. They were just going in reverse. So that's nothing illegal. And Canterbury kept scrumming for the penalty, and Paul's like, no, use it. They're not doing anything wrong. Yes, you keep going. So a lot of the times, refs just go to a penalty because previously, it doesn't look great, or teams aren't, they're trying to bail out of it to just force them to play. So that's the penalty. But I think refs are now starting to go, no, use it. So we see this lesson, not as prevalent as it once was, but if there's no indiscretion, then there shouldn't be punishment. It's not illegal to go backwards.
Yeah.
But you've just got to stay square, and you're not trying to dictate the scrum in a certain way, or you don't pop up. Like you'll see hookers' heads pop up. That you can't have that. You can't just keep going backwards after that. That's then a penalty. So I think with the big fixation on scrums and not having resets and not going, to penalties and so forth, less and less of this is happening. I can see the frustration, but a lot of it is down to that perception of the ref and are they actually doing wrong, and are we just forcing teams to play? So to get a penalty these days, it hasn't happened so much at international rugby yet, but at Super Rugby level and NPC level in our sphere, there's definitely more of a focus to get the ball out and not rush to a penalty.
What do you think, Bryn? Go to a free kick rather than a penalty in that situation?
They'll go back to a scrum.
Yeah.
So you're better off to go to the penalty,
all right,
because you won't take the scrum. So it's not about free kick penalty. It's have they actually done anything wrong? If they're just going backwards, then use it, because you've still got to get the ball out. You can't just leave it at the back of the scrum.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this whole evolution of scrum and resets, this will sort itself out, and it'll become not such a fixation on sides to scrum for penalties, because they're not going to get as many. And then you're actually just slowing yourself up.
And then what will Bryn say to the refs?
Don't worry. There'll always be another loophole. There'll always be another loophole in the evolution of our beautiful game.
I can't say anything more than that, Ross. Like, the man is just that very good at scrum, so it'd almost be bad if I ended up saying anything more around the scrum topic. So Jip's done a great job in the past 2 questions, so I'll leave it at that.
I complimented Paul, and he goes, we've been given a directive to make sure that there's actually been an indiscretion.
Yeah.
Don't just go. And so, there is a clear focus on not having this frustration that, this question...
Be better or cop a penalty.
Yeah. So going backwards is not, just like losing a line out. You're not going to get penalised for it.
Yeah.
So
you get penalised for missing a tackle, apart from the points being scored.
But do you know what I mean? They're trying to close that exact frustration right there.
Yeah.
Has been seen by everyone, but most importantly, the referees, and they're looking to make that adjustment.
Now, we do have one more scrum question, but I think we might hold on for
I think I've even had enough of scrum.
Yeah, we'll hold on that for a little bit later. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to come up over the next few weeks where there'll be plenty of scrums going on. Let's go to the next question from Kim Bosman, and Kim, we'll give you the Player Sports ball for this particular question. My question is in relation to penalty advantages. In some games, it feels as if the advantage goes too long, where a team may have gone 8 phases and is dominating, then a mistake on the 8th brings the play all the way back. Could it be that the team gets to the 5th phase, then they've taken enough advantage and we just continue to play without a penalty? What do you think, Brent?
So it's obviously interpreted differently from different refs. And I think one thing that they do really well, I think, is the advantage for a knock-on. I think that advantage gets done pretty much straight away. Like, I think a lot of the times this year, and something that I had to learn, is that we pretty much had a knock-on advantage, and it was maybe 1 or 2 phases, and sometimes we put little contestable kicks or attacking kicks straight away, and the advantage was taken straight away. So I think that in that side of the advantage law, when it comes to knock-ons, I do think they get it right, and it's done pretty quickly. I just think, with the penalty advantage, geez, you could go 10 to 12 phases, but only go 5 metres, and then they say the advantage isn't over because you haven't really gone anywhere. So I do like that idea, Ross, if it is that kind of 5 to 7 phase, or kind of having a number or a certain meterage that you get past once having the advantage, it then becomes advantage over. But I think the only thing that I think they do get right is the knock-on advantage, or not a penalty advantage. They tend to let the advantage go a little bit more quicker.
if you haven't got advantage in 3 or 4 phases, then I think just call it back. Like, just give the penalty.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Rather than waiting till there's an error in the 8th phase, if they haven't got over the gain line and they haven't got their play going, call it back. If they get over the gain line and they keep playing, they've decided to take the advantage they've got. So advantage over. So I do think it's like, okay, you've got 3 or 4 phases to get across the gain line, get something going, and it's advantage over, or it's you haven't got anything going and we go straight back, or it's we're in a position of the field as a team, we're not going to risk losing that penalty and we fake a knock on. We do a purposeful knock on to get the advantage straight away. So actually make some gamesmanship and make teams, you know what I always say, like knowing the laws and having the ability to understand the wider concepts of rugby is a point of difference for players and sometimes a reason why players get selected. Well, make it a point of difference within the game, managing the advantage and how a ref rewards you. But I do think there's an onus on, yes, players potentially just putting their hand up and saying, we'll take the advantage, but at the end of the day, the guy with the whistle controls all of it. And you will adjust your behaviour to that. So I think if nothing happens, we've just got to make that decision quicker. And if they get across the gain line and they play, sweet, they've chosen to take that advantage over.
Yeah.
You know, most nines really, because obviously they're the people that are in those kind of positions. And if you're aware, have good game sense, you'll know that, look, we're getting to that 4-5 range, and if we're not going anywhere, you might have a conversation with the ref, say, we'll take the advantage. Like a lot of the time, if you actually hear on ref cam or mic cams, you'll hear those conversations happening with the nines or anybody that's in and around that ball. So I actually really like Jip's idea around that. It's around having good game awareness and understanding that, you know, if we're not getting what we want, we can do the fake knock on, or we can go for a drop goal, or have some form of way where we can just have one more last shot. But then if you don't get that right and you play 5-6 phases and you think, well, a penalty is a better option, it might be, you know, we're up by 5 points and this penalty is going to give us a 3-point advantage to play. It's going to be 2 scores. And if you get that wrong, you lose that opportunity to have that advantage. So, yeah, I really like that idea by Jip, and it's actually a good way that I think you could bring a bit more gamesmanship into the game and being a little bit more clued up around getting that right.
There you go, Kim. Thank you very much. We'll send you out the Players Sports Gilbert Ball. Also, if you're New Zealand-based and a supporter of ARP, we're offering you a 20% discount of AB supporters gear, balls and boots at Players Sports. So go to this QR code here, and when you get to the checkout, put in the discount code RugbyPod20 and you can get that discount on AB supporters gear and also the boots and the balls. So thank you very much for Players Sports, and thank you very much for all of you for watching the show and supporting us along the way. Now, before we go, Portia Woodman-Wickliffe, 33 years old, won everything under the sun, 15s, 7s titles, Olympic medals, scored more tries than anyone in the history of the game ever anywhere, is an absolute dominant force. 33 years old, has chosen not to go to rugby league and go with the Warriors, where a lot of people thought she might go. She's chosen to go to the Blues. And she says she wants to play, not at an international level, she's done there. She wants to play and play and play and keep on playing like she's Ma'anonu.
Well, she's definitely, she's of the same calibre. I think the awesome thing, you know, for the female game to have someone like Portia come back, you know, to the Blues, but also because talent spreads around, is what she can do for the younger players around. When you see a professional of her standard, you know, it's, if I liken it to what I'm trying to explain is Kevi presented a way of behaving.
Kevi Mialamu.
Yeah, Kevi Mialamu presented a way. So I was like, okay, well, if I want to be an All Black, I've got to do that. I've got to emulate that. That's where I want to go. So it's no different. There'll be a lot of young players, and there is a lot younger, I suppose, demographic in the female game just because the talent pool is smaller. Man, learning at that age and seeing it for action and also being able to pick the brains, I think, although she's going to be outstanding on the field, I think what she can give off the field to these players of what professionalism look like and what great takes is probably going to be more beneficial than the 50 tries she's probably going to score. I know that sounds ridiculous, but in the long run, it is going to pay massive dividends, that intel and that ability to learn on the run with someone of her experience and someone who's dealt with pressure, real pressure. in terms of, you know, gold medals on the line and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bryn, but at 33 years old, and she said her father played until his 50s at club footy. You know, obviously her father and uncle were very good players back in their day. What do you think it is about these players right now who are able to keep it going, including yourself, mate? Just keep on going and going and going. What is it about the preparation? Is it the nutrition? Is it the recovery? Why are we seeing people like her, like a Ma'anonu, you know, who don't see an end? They just want to keep going.
Thanks for putting me into that calibre there, Ross, of a Porsche woman and Ma'anonu. I really appreciate that. Look, I think you just go through stages in life, and I think especially when you have a span of a rugby career, I think when you're younger, you know, when you're a schoolboy just finishing school and maybe to the 23, 24, it's all about how can I be faster, fitter, stronger, and I guess maybe building things that you haven't had or strengths that you don't have in your game because just with your size or wherever you are in your stage of your early career. And then I think once you find that middle age, 25, 26, 27, I think that's kind of where you find your balance and you know exactly what you are as a rugby player, and then it's more around your preparation, your nutrition, and being able to get all those things right. And then I think once you get to the kind of tail end of your career, all the money in the bank that you kind of had through the duration of your career, you then have a pretty good understanding of what's required of you and probably altering and changing things that you do from the earlier part of your career even to the middle stages. You're constantly evolving and constantly changing with how your preparation is and your recovery or even your lifting or your running load or whatever that looks like, because you've just got the experience of knowing what you need to do to get out on the field, perform well in the training field, whether that's just altered a little bit and then being able to go out on the field and perform as well. So I think if you do get that and you do need a bit of luck, you know, some players are injury prone and have had a lot of injuries throughout their career, whether that be soft tissue or serious injuries. You like to see Portia, she has had a few serious injuries, but through her preparation and through her recovery and her due diligence of being able to get that right, she's fortitude to be able to play for a longer period of time, right? So I think that's what it all encompasses of being able to evolve with the times and then at the same time having a little bit of luck when it comes to not having those long-term injuries, especially on the back end of your career.
I'll just clarify, when Bryn says money in the bank, he doesn't actually mean all his money in his bank. He actually means his training age and his knowledge he's accumulated over time in nutrition and, you know, sports science and, you know, mental skills, not the yen that's coming into his bank account.
He's bought the rounds that he's supposed to buy. For the 19th.
Thank you for elaborating on that, Jeff. That's very important. That is exactly the things that I was touching on. And that's why we're good mates, you know. You can help me out here, mate. So I really appreciate that from the big fella. Thanks, mate.
What do you see, mate?
I do think a lot of it is around development of understanding what's possible and what's not through sports science. And I think it's also, for some athletes, the mental joy of growing, and this normally will lead to players that are coaches because they want to impart knowledge on the next generation. So they've got different motivating factors to go back. For some athletes, they're mentally drained and they can't. It's not really a physical thing. Physically, they could still do it, but actually turning up to training and doing what they've done for 15, 16 years is just a no thank you. So it's becoming more and more prevalent in the aspect that sports science is allowing the body to stay more physically able for a longer period of time. But also I think there is a definite shift in terms of what can I impart for the next generation rather than, I suppose, just because, and this isn't, I suppose, a judgment, but the process was do your career here, then go overseas. Whereas now it's a little bit more, there's a lot more consideration to lifestyle factors, where you live and what other motivating factors for each individual. And I just think that's sort of changed as well, which plays a part into this. But the major factor why older bodies can perform is sports science and being able to get your body to a point that allows you to perform.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they've still got to perform.
Yeah.
That's what they're paid to do. So if you couldn't perform, you wouldn't get picked.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be provided this opportunity. And that's just around sports science for me.
So don't forget to stretch. Make sure you stretch every day.
And sometimes,
You're right.
sometimes less is more. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. You can definitely overtrain.
You do now.
Yeah, I haven't learned it actually.
Yeah, summer's coming, and he's coming to a beach near you. Yeah. Right. So thank you very much for joining us once again on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Really hope you enjoy the All Blacks versus Japan this weekend, the NPC final as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to James Parsons. Thank you to Bryn Hall. Enjoy your flight back to Japan, Brenner, and we'll catch you across the airwaves next week as well.
Can't wait, lads. Arigato gozaimashita. Thank you very much, boys.
And thank you very much to the studio crew and everyone who helps put Aotearoa Rugby Pod together every single week. Kia pai te wiki. See you next week.